Yeah, this looks good. It's full screen now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you to Yogesh and to Yashwant for inviting me to come and give this talk. I do apologize for not being there in person. As many of you know, I have visited India on many occasions, and it's sad that the current world situation doesn't allow that this time. But I do look forward to future visits. So what I want to do in the next 20 odd minutes, allowing time for questions, is to bring you up to date with the current situation with regard to the SKA. As Yogesh has just indicated, we are a project in significant and very positive transition at the moment. So first of all, can you see that change? I just did want to congratulate Ashwin here on his fantastic achievement of the third time he'd done 5 wickets and 100 runs in a test match the other day. And congratulations to India for comprehensively beating England. I should point out it's now 1-1 in the series. Looking forward to the future games. And I know Joe McMullen will be totally confused as to what this is all about. But I'm sure my Indian colleagues appreciate it. So, SKA, well, I'll be very brief on these first few slides. We're a global collaboration. We're building and operating the next generation radio astronomy observatory. And as Yogesh has just indicated, we now have, it's entered into force an intergovernmental organization governed by a treaty. So in the future, from now on, we refer to the project as the SKA Observatory, or SKAO. We have 16 countries, and of course, we're going to build 2 telescopes, describe them briefly in a moment, with a global headquarters in the UK. And we have 2 data processing centers, or will have 2 data processing centers, one in Perth and one in Cape Town. Plus, as you in India are fully aware, a global network of regional centers to deliver science-ready data. I'll talk about the overall cost, anticipated cost of the project in a moment, but the headline number is just under 2 billion euros for the first 10 years. This map shows the 16 partner countries in the light blue there. And not all of them are full members yet of the treaty organization. I'll talk to that in a moment. But we run under the mantra of 1 observatory, 2 telescopes, and 3 continents, because it is our intent and all our planning is focused on running the whole observatory as an integrated operation. So you know, we work very closely with our partners around the world for the construction activities, and with CSIRO and SKAO, the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory, for the operational aspects. Just to put SKA in context, this is a very nice picture showing what 21st century astronomy will look like. And for you younger people on the call, I do envy you that you will have all of these facilities available for you to do your research. It's a fantastic set of mega science facilities, all the way from the radio to the gamma ray, but of course the SKA providing the radio cornerstone of all of this. You know what we're building: 2 telescopes, SKA low frequency, 50 to 350 megahertz in Western Australia, and SKA mid in the Karoo, going up to 15 gigahertz. I won't say anything more about this. You're all very familiar with what it is that we're building. Just to emphasize that we will be incorporating Meerkat, the operational 64 element array. So in a sense, about 1/3 of the telescope already exists in South Africa, and we'll be building out from Meerkat. And then we have grand plans for a second phase of the project. This summarizes the total cost, which is, as I've indicated, just under 2 billion euros, 2020 euros. You see in the bottom left corner there. This is made up of the estimated capital cost of construction for all of the hardware, the construction support budget, which is the project managers, system engineers, and all their associated costs, travel, etc., to support the construction activity. And then about 660 million euros for the operational aspects, which starts right now. So, you know, it's paying the salaries of people at the observatory, but will increasingly then cover the cost of operation as the array is built out. And we do intend to have a well-funded observatory development program. No observatory, no well-founded observatory can operate effectively without a development program. It rapidly will fade away from being world-class. And then the diagram below shows the estimated spend profile for construction and the other activities. And that's for the first 10 years. Of course, we'll have to carry on with the operational and hopefully there's 2 construction funds after that. And the headquarters are in that very nice new building sitting at the feet of the Lovell telescope there. And that's actually looking out of the window pretty much what today looks like in the UK. Although I'm at home, of course, not at the observatory. We have nobody on site at the moment. This is our very nice council chamber, which we hope to be reoccupying for council meetings in the coming months. So there will be plenty of talks later in this meeting on the science drivers. So I just put this up there as the summary of the key science drivers which guide the requirements for the observatory. Joe will talk a little bit more about those requirements in a moment. So the current status. These are the key recent milestones that occurred last year. They're a mixture of the treaty being ratified, successful system critical design review, successful operations review, external cost audit, business enabling review, etc., etc. And then in September, the SKA board endorsed the SKA1 construction proposal and the observatory establishment and delivery plan. And that was a key milestone, building on a decade of work by many people, including the Indian community, which Yashwant will describe shortly. Then in December, we achieved the minimum number of ratifications required for the observatory to enter into force. There was a 30-day notification period, but on January the 15th, that happened. And then the 4th of February, we had the first meeting of the SKA Council. So I regard actually the 4th of February as the date of birth of the SKA Observatory. And there was some very nice press. So we had our own website, the BBC put something up, science. And I have noticed from my Google News feed that there were various articles in the Indian press as well, which was gratifying to see. These are the key documents I've mentioned: the construction proposal, the observatory establishment and delivery plan, and prospectus. These will be actually electronically available to the broad community fairly soon. So first council meeting. We have 6 formal members. These are the countries that have ratified the treaty, and we had 10 observers. And India is in the so-called observer list at the moment because ratification and approval processes are proceeding in India, as you know well. So we expect China and Sweden to become full members in the relatively near future. Canadian colleagues have a proposal into government. Process is proceeding in India. France, Germany, and Spain have applied to join the SKA Observatory, and discussions are in process there. Switzerland have stated that their national processes don't allow them to make a decision until 2022, 2023, but we are setting up an interim arrangement with the Swiss. And Korea, South Korea and Japan are at an earlier stage in the process, so they will come a little later. There were key decisions made at this first council meeting, a lot of decisions, but these had been prepared through an extensive series of almost 20 meetings beforehand. So Catherine Sisarski was appointed as the first chair of council, Don Du Toit from South Africa as the vice chair, Colin Vincent from the UK as the chair of the Finance Committee, which will have a crucial role in the procurement stage for SKA. Simon Berry from my office is seconded to the council until May. Reason for that will become clear in a moment, because we have not yet transitioned all the staff to the council. And I was honoured and humbled to be appointed as the first Director General of the Observatory. So various other key decisions occurred. The committee structure was approved. The various, what we call Tier 2, the high-level policies, intellectual property, operations, access, and procurement were done. The working documents, procurement manual, in-kind framework, fair work return framework were approved. Huge amount of work went into those. What we call the initial funding schedule, this is the minimum funding needed to pay staff for the first 2 years. That was approved. And the various regulations and policies for staff, the things that you need to make an organization like this operational, they were all approved. So SKAO will become an operational entity from the 1st of May. That is the date on which all of the staff will transfer from the current company, the organization, to the observatory. All of the assets will transfer. And so right now it's a sort of, I describe it as an empty vessel, but it will become a fully operational entity from the 1st of May 2021. And we will then begin the process of shutting down the current company, which will no longer be required. Other key decisions, council endorsed the construction proposal and the OEDP, the establishment and delivery plan, endorsed conditional allocations of work for construction. Again, a huge amount of work went into that. And they approved the management towards a staged delivery of the baseline design. So Joe will talk about this in a moment. But basically what this means is at the point of approval of construction, we won't have all of the countries as members. So there'll be a process where we have to manage the procurement and delivery as that money flows into the observatory. So we are on track for a decision to approve construction with the start of construction activities on the 1st of July this year. I'm not saying I'm not guaranteeing we will meet that, but that is our intent and we're on track for that. The council also approved a new logo and the evolution of the brand. I can hear an echo. Is it Jitendra has a microphone on? This slide shows the key project milestones, which Joe will talk to, but as you see there, start of construction T0 is 1st of July, various milestones through the years with a projected end of construction in July 2029. Now, there is 18 months of schedule contingency built into that. And fingers crossed, we'll be able to formally end construction earlier. But this, I think, is a realistic schedule. So more from Joe in a moment. This is what the functional structure of the observatory will look like, with the global headquarters and then various centers and the telescopes in both Australia and South Africa. And I've got a little bit on each of these at the moment. So you see there the engineering operations centers. These are the base. There would be two, one in each country, a base for engineering operations and on-site activities, such as maintenance and repair. And these will be relatively close. Well, relatively close. In Australia, it's 350 kilometers from the site in the town of Geraldton, a little bit closer in South Africa. Then you see the science operations centers. These will be respectively in Perth and in Cape Town. And also the science processing centers, the high performance computing centers. These also will be in Perth and Cape Town. And we've gone quite far in understanding where these will be. So in Australia, the Science Operations Centre will be in this existing building, which is owned by CSIRO in Perth. It's a large building, so we will occupy just a relatively small part of that. The Science Processing Centre will be in the Pawsey Centre, which is just a few hundred meters from the ARC building. These are the architectural concept designs for the Engineering Operations Centre in Geraldton, which will be right next to the current ASCAP equivalent. There's spare land next to that building. This is the Buladi accommodation facility. At the moment, there are what the Australians call dongas. These are converted trailers. They're actually relatively comfortable, but they're not a long-term solution. So we will build a new lodge out at Buladi, close to where the telescope is, to accommodate people locally. You will notice there's a pool here. I should say it's not a swimming pool. That's a reserve of water to fight fire if it ever happens, and it just may coincidentally be used by humans to relax at the end of the day. In South Africa, you see here a map of the area near Cape Town, and SKA will be building a new building at the location indicated there, so-called Ithemba Labs. This is an aerial view, and you can see outlined in this orangey yellow color the piece of land where the new SKA building will be located. So it will be put in this particular place here. And I'll tell you what will happen with the rest of that land in a moment. Another thing we're progressing towards is we're preparing a request for proposals to deliver power for the telescopes, and in fact also the buildings and the supercomputers. In South Africa, there is grid power, but it's insufficient capacity, and there's poor infrastructure and escalating costs. So we are pursuing a solar photovoltaic solution in South Africa. In Australia, at the site, there is no grid power, so we have to have an independent power system there. And again, we're pursuing a photovoltaic solution. In Perth, of course, there is a plentiful and reliable grid system, but we will consider purchasing renewable supplies over the grid. So we are moving forward on this request for proposal, and that should be issued shortly. This, of course, is the existing photovoltaic battery with a diesel backup system that exists to provide power for ASCAP and MWA. We need something about 3 times the size of that for SKA alone. But it already demonstrates that this works, and the infrastructure is there. So we'll be proceeding on that basis. And then coming back to the Ithemba Labs, it is our intent to put a photovoltaic power station here to provide the necessary power for the supercomputer, and of course the building. Data is a huge issue for SKA, handling the data, and of course the numbers are somewhat frightening. And for the SKA, the operational model is different than for traditional telescopes such as the GMRT, because the supercomputer becomes a part of the telescope. It will process and calibrate the data on the fly. And so it becomes a schedulable resource of the telescope itself. And this is one of the primary reasons why we need the SKA regional centers as a scientific interface to the SKA data. So from each telescope will be, when they're fully operational, will be transmitting of the order of 350 petabytes per year. That will go over undersea fiber cables to the various regional centers. And this is just an illustration of where such regional centers might exist. These require 100 gigabit per second connections. And work is underway planning for this regional center network. We have 6 working groups looking at various aspects of the architecture. And we're just in the process of recruiting an SKA Regional Center architect within the observatory to oversee the design activity for the network. Just moving on, Science Data Challenge. The second Science Data Challenge we've issued is underway. This is a particularly large one with a simulated, actually 1 terabyte cube of the sky with of the order of 10 to the 7 continuum sources and 10 to the 6 simulated neutral hydrogen galaxies within that cube. So you can see the properties of the cube there. This has now been, the data challenge has been issued. What's very pleasing is we've had 40 teams from around the world they're participating in the data challenge, and we have 8 supercomputing centers who are participating as well and giving time to the teams in the data challenge. So at the moment, we're just coming to the end of matching teams with resources. We expect the whole thing will be complete in July. And we will be running subsequent data challenges as well. But this has been a very successful process. And then finally, just want to advertise that we will be having a virtual science conference in the middle of March. We're already heavily oversubscribed for the talks, and the scientific organizing committee are going through selecting the talks and identifying which contributions will be given as posters. We're using the on-air system, which has been used successfully at, for example, the European Astronomical Society. And registration is open, and I would encourage people to register. We've kept the cost very low. I think it's £40, and that's really just to cover the costs of the on-air system. But I would encourage people to participate in the conference. So I hope I've convinced you that 2020 has been a year to remember for many reasons in the SKA. Of course, the pandemic has made it a year that we will want to forget in the future. But what it has demonstrated is that basic science is key, absolutely key to our civilization, to our health and our welfare. And I think governments recognize that. And let's hope that 2021 is a year to celebrate the birth of the observatory and the start of construction. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing. Over to you, Yogesh.
Yes, thank you very much, Phil, for an excellent update and introduction to the SKA telescope and observatory. We will now we're now open for taking questions and comments. So the participants who would like who are on the Zoom call and would like to ask a question, please raise your hand using the raise hand facility on the Zoom, and then we'll take questions one by one. And those on the YouTube, please type in your questions into the chat, and then we have people on hand to sort of collate those questions, and we'll take them once we are done with the Zoom questions.
Seems I was crystal clear, Yogesh.
Yes.
No worries.
Let's give it a minute, and because there is I believe a delay on the YouTube site, so if there are people who want to ask some question there, we'll give them a second.
So I see there is a question on the chat line, the Zoom chat line, Yogesh.
Yes, so let's pick that up. When will the first set of data be gathered? Which year he wants to know exactly.
Yeah, so as I indicated, the full operation will come towards the end of this decade. But there will obviously, once we have a significant number of dishes and systems, software, digital signal processing systems, etc., in place, we will begin the commissioning process, the science verification process, working up to shared risk observations and things like that. And I would imagine the very earliest dates that would start would be 2025, 26, something like that, when we open it up to shared risk observations with the community, maybe around 2026, something like that. And these will be necessarily small scale observations, but with real SKA data at that time. And no guarantee of success, of course, because we'll still be in the process of commissioning and debugging the system. I hope that answers the question from Kiran.
Well, what about the start date for full operations?
Well, we anticipate that will be around 2029, 2030, when we'll be able to really start the big key science programs, the big surveys. But PI-led projects may well happen a little before that. It all depends on the construction team's progress, which Joe will talk to you about in a minute. So we have a plan, of course, but between now and then, the telescope has to be built and commissioned.
I don't see any questions on the YouTube chat. Nirupam, can you confirm that there are no questions?
Yeah, no questions yet on the YouTube.
There is another one from
there
Prabhu.
Is another on the...
There's another one from Prabhu. Phil, you want to take that?
Yeah. So Prabhu asks, are we still open to for new member countries to join the SKA? And the answer is absolutely yes. We don't yet have all of the funds that we need. So any avenue, any country that is interested, we're very willing to talk to them. And we have had conversations at the scientific level with 2 or 3 other countries, other than those that I mentioned in my talk. So yes, we're very much open to new partners joining, and I do anticipate over the years that this will happen. We're also, of course, talking to the existing members and observers about increased funds with time. And I'm confident that such things will happen. The governments are not going to invest money in a facility like the SKA and not funded appropriately. So we're exploring every route.
Yeah.
Yogesh, sorry, since I am a co-host, I cannot raise my hand. So can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Phil, has there been any decision or updates on how the telescope time will be distributed between different member countries, the science time?
So the access policy, which is one of those very high-level policies that I mentioned, had been approved. Basically, it has a high-level principle that time will be allocated in proportion to the contribution made to the construction and operations. Now, actually implementing something like that is much more complex than just making that statement, because as we all know, the composition of science teams, especially for big surveys, will necessarily be multinational. So how one actually develops the algorithm to work out retrospectively, and it will be retrospectively, how that time is allocated against the pro rata expectation. That's something that the science team are working on the most efficient way to actually do that. I do note that ALMA, which has a smaller number of formal participants, Europe, North America, and East Asia, the approach they've adopted is to base it just on the PIs. I'm not sure we can quite do that for SKA since we have many more partners, but it's something to be worked through. But it's also something that we won't allocate a specific block of time to a country. We will accept proposals and judge them on their scientific merit. And then after, say, a few years of observing, we'll look back and say, well, country X is significantly underrepresented in the science outputs, and we'll look to see what we can do to assist the scientists from that country.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah. I see Nirupam has raised his hand. Nirupam, please go ahead.
Phil, I have a quick question. So is either the timeline or the projected budget affected by the pandemic in any significant way, or is it more or less at the same ballpark?
Well, I've given what our expectations are, but of course the pandemic is influencing things. We've largely been working from home for a good fraction of the last 12 months. Nevertheless, the team have done an amazing job in putting together the proposals and actually conducting the reviews. So I don't anticipate that the start of the construction activities is going to be significantly delayed, if at all. But what might impact it, and Joe may comment on this a little later, is if we are significantly limited in international travel, because one can't construct a project like SKA without traveling. That may have an impact. That may slow us down somewhat. But we've looked at that, but it's such an unpredictable thing that we haven't really judged the impact. We've just registered it as a risk. And of course, on the funding side, well, look, it would be unrealistic for me to say that the pandemic has not had an impact. What is pleasing is it hasn't had a major impact, but some countries are saying, look, we may not be able to, we will be able to deliver the full funding we promised, but it could be that the funding profile, our ability to deliver it as quickly as you want, may be impacted. But to be honest, we haven't had a definitive statement from any country on that front. And we're in discussion with them all. So fingers crossed so far, nothing significant or particularly worrying on that front.
Yeah, there are a couple new questions on the chat. There is a question from Dipankar who's asking, how will the work assignment, particularly the in-kind contribution, be decided for countries that join later?
Yeah, that in itself is a challenge, because I'm sure, as Joe will say, he needs to know who is doing the work at the start of the construction activity for the major constructions. We can't, there are some possibilities for later down the line. There are possibilities, for example, to add capabilities to the SKA, bands 3 and bands 4 on SKA mid, and not part of the design baseline. That we always anticipated they would come later. So we do have to be a little bit creative in new countries coming in, and it could be that if a country joins quite late in the process, they will have to, that benefit will be in the science return. And that happens, for example, at ESO. Just as an example, the UK joined ESO many years after it was first created, and they effectively paid a joining fee and then an annual operations contribution, but they get to be engaged in instrument design and, of course, heavily within the ELT, which is a new project. So what we have to hold out is the hope, is the expectation that new countries will have a significant role in phase 2 of the SKA.
Yes, that's right. We have one more question, which is about interference. Has there been any effort in measuring the interference at regular time intervals in Australia and South Africa? I think he's referring to RFI. Yes,
and that this is something, of course, that we're heavily engaged in. We have a spectrum management team, some very competent engineers. We're working with SKAO and CSIRO, who, of course, have telescopes operating on the ground. So we know what that interference environment looks like. Both sites are protected by national regulation, significantly strong regulation. But of course, one of the challenges is these mega constellations, which are being launched right now. We're actively working with the companies that are launching these to minimize the interference on the sites. So it's the radio astronomers, as people at the GMRT and UT will know, have been living with RFI for years. We have various mitigation techniques, various avoidance techniques, but it's a continual battle, and it will continue to be for the lifetime of SKA and radio astronomy. So we have mitigation processes that we're pursuing.
Yes, we have one question on the YouTube channel from an undergraduate student, and he wants to know, Himadri Saha wants to know, what are the opportunities for an undergraduate student to be involved with the SKA? This is an undergraduate who's seriously interested in research.
Yes, well, so we at SKA right now, we have a small science team and a significant engineering team, and it will be growing. But our primary mission is to construct and operate the SKA. Of course, as part of that, a strategic element of that is to work with our partners around the world to ensure that there's an immensely strong scientific and engineering community that uses the SKA and that supports the SKA. So I would say to an undergraduate, the primary route into this is first of all, if you're in science, pursue a PhD. or on the engineering side, get into creative and innovative engineering in areas that the SKA or astronomy generally needs. And we will be hiring a lot. We're going to be we're about 120 people right now. We'll need close to 500 at the peak of the construction program, and so 440, I think, in the long-term operational program. So there will be opportunities. We will at some point be running a postdoctoral program for researchers. So I think there are plenty of opportunities there around the world, and with the interest of governments in SKA, the opportunities I think are growing in universities and research organizations.
I'd just like to add here that in our funding proposal, noting the fact that this telescope will be used in the 2030s onwards, essentially, we have proposed a significant budget for building up the human resources, the skilled engineers and scientists who will be the users in the future. So we have designed special programs for undergraduate students, for PhD students, postdocs, and even the general public. So we will have in tomorrow's workshop between 2 and 2:30, we have a small session on the outreach activities, which are primarily to the public, but also towards undergraduates. So you're encouraged to join the YouTube feed at that time and find out more. There's one last question which we can take, which is from Prabhu. Prabhu wants to know, could you comment on what is likely to be the phase 2 of the SKA?
Yeah, so what is pleasing is that various of our member governments still have the goal of pursuing phase 2, which I think is excellent. But before we plan deeply on that front, I think we have to demonstrate that we can build and operate phase 1. So I think we're probably a few years away from serious engagement with governments on phase 2.
Right. Yeah, I think it's still something that has not been properly defined.
No, it's the science case is there. The science case, we did the science case for the full SKA. Of course, science case evolves. But I think this is something for my successor.
Yes. Okay, so I think we have addressed all the questions that have come in. And I think we've sort of exhausted the time that we had reserved for this talk.